Part 1. Introduction. Hello there. Welcome. My name is Ian Celibate, and this is my study. Today, we are going to be examining the Incelclopedia. Do you know what it means to money max? Do you know the difference between a true cell and a fake cell? This video would be a one-stop shop for all of these incel terms. Let us begin by examining the term incel as part of a quadrant. The x-axis is voluntary, and the y-axis is celibate. An involuntary celibate is somebody that wants to have sex but cannot, as opposed to a voluntary incelibate who wants to have sex and so does. But there is also something called the voluntary celibate. Voluntary celibates, or volcels, do not have sex because they choose to, or at least that's what they say. And then of course there are the involuntary incelibates, who are Part 2, the decile scale. The decile scale is how humans rank each other in terms of attractiveness out of 10. According to the Incelclopedia, this applies to both men and women, although there are differences. In the world of the Incelclopedia, there is subjectivity around the 10 out of 10 mark, but leading up to it, it is mostly an objective scale. Part 3, Incel-ish. Now we will cover all of the different kinds of incel. Let us begin with those who are not incels, but are quite close. Incel-ish applies to people who are typically 3 or lower on the decile scale as men. Maybe they've technically had sex once in their life, but it's been a very long time since they've had sex, and so they are incel-ish. Also called near-cels, these people typically resonate with the incel community while not technically being true cells. So what is a true cell? Well, first we must talk about what a fake cell is. For example, if you've had the opportunity to have sex but have turned it down, you may not be an incel. You may be accused instead of being a fake cell. True cells are truly incels who have had no opportunities to lose their virginity ever. You may be wondering, why does an incel simply not purchase an escort to rid themselves of their virginity? According to the Incelclopedia, the escort cell is still, technically, an incel. To be an incel, you must be of age. However, young cells have warning signs that show that they might be progressing towards inceldom as an adult. Contrasting the young cell, the old cell is somebody who is too old to be sexualized. And on that note, a wizard is somebody who is 30 years old or more who has never had sex. Now let's do some quick rapid fire as to the different kinds of celibates. Prison cells are incels because they've been to prison or they are currently in prison where there is no options for females. Height cells claim to be incelibate because of their height, bald cells incelibate because they are bald, and frame cells because of their small frame. You may be noticing a pattern here. Poor cells believe that they are incelibate because they are poor, queer cells because they are queer, and intercells because they are intersex. You may be wondering how there are so many terms for essentially the same thing on this topic. We will never know. Anyway, the next one on the list is the autistic cell. Mental cell is a broad term for anybody who is rendered incelibate due to a mental condition. So, there can be some people who are absolute chads who are nonetheless mental cells, whether that is PTSD, or autism, or schizophrenia. Brain cells are those that believe they are too intelligent, that their brains are too large to have sex. Bird cells are those whose facial expression resembles a bird, due to a weak chin and a large nose. Ha! Those unfortunate souls. And then, of course, there are the ethnic cells. Black cells, curry cells, rice cells. Based off of these terms, it may sound that incels are extremely racist. Yes. Yep. However, before it was banned, brain cells did have an overrepresentation of Asian and Indian populations in their community. Part 4. Women. Now we will move on to the incel conception of females. Femoid is a disparaging and dehumanizing term to refer to women in general. Femcels are female incels. There is hot debate in the incel community as to whether or not a femcel can even exist. An mcel is an emotional celibate. This is a woman who is incapable of committing to a man because of emotional damage. incels claim many modern women are M-cells, which is a little like the pot calling the kettle unempathetic. A femcel light is comparable to someone who is incelish, typically 3 or lower on the decile scale, a high-tier femcel. Despite the gatekeeping, however, there have been many communities online that do consist of self-identified femcels, raising the question, why do the femcels and the incels simply not date? Then of course we have Stacies, who are attractive women, typically boned by chads. Stacies are typically 8 out of 10 on the decile scale. A Stacy Light, however, would only be a 7, and a Becky would be around a 6 or a 5. Gigastacies are 9s and 10s. An incelophile is a hypothetical female who has a fetish for true cells. This is often fantasized as a mode of ascension for incels. Part 5. Chads. Now we will talk about male chads. We will begin with normies, like Brad, who is about a 6 or a 7 on the decile scale. Brads are mini chads. A Tanner is a 5, a Melvin is a 4, and as we've mentioned before, anything below Melvin is incel-ish. Chads include the Chad Light, who's about an 8 out of 10, the Chad, who's about a 9 out of 10, and the Giga Chad, who is a 10 out of 10. There are also different Chads for different ethnic groups. For example, Tyrone. Then of course there is the Chadlet, a short Chad or a short king. It does seem like this contradicts the height cell, but this isn't the most coherent book. Now we will glance at incel theories of everything. We will begin with the homocell hypothesis. The homocell hypothesis states that, given enough time, all incels will become homosexual, and that many homosexuals were once incel. The same thing goes with the transvestigality hypothesis, summed up with the phrase, "I am the girlfriend now." Let us talk about the sociosexual hierarchy. Interestingly enough, incels identify with the sociosexual hierarchy. Only, instead of identifying as the sigma male on the top, like a lot of men, they identify at the bottom as the omega male. The omega male is, of course, the exact opposite of the alpha male. Not even a beta who can support the alpha, just nothing. Part 6.5. The pills. The blue pill is the normie's perception of reality. This is before they realized how things truly are. The blue-pilled person has not been opened up to the realities that the incels see in the world, that actually women are on top. When the normie is red-pilled, they see that women are actually in control of society, according to the Incelclopedia. You see, the red pillars are those in the manosphere. MGTOWs, men going their own way, men's rights activists. While red pillars are typically misogynistic, they are also at least trying to get action. Most incels are black-pilled, whereas the red pill states that you can do something to change your circumstances. The black pill means you must accept your state in life as genetically inferior. If you are black-pilled, you have no hope to have sex with a woman. Instead, you must accept that you will simply die alone. Now for some rapid-fire terms. Hypergamy is the tendency for an individual to date up, ditching their previous partner for a more higher quality mate. A looks match is somebody who is matching you on the decile scale, i.e. a 6 out of 10 man dating a 6 out of 10 women, a Becky and a Tanner, for example. Marxism-Rogerism is my incel as proletariat video, but like unironically. One-itis is the tendency for one man to get caught up on one woman to his detriment. The beta uprising is the day where the incels will rise up against the chads. The white pill is sometimes associated with stoic cells, those that have come to terms with their inceldom and no longer feel nihilism and remorse about it. They seek to live as good of a life as possible within those constraints. A white knight is somebody who simps for women. This person is suffering from what the incels would call a blue pill overdose, where they are completely controlled by the feminine instinct. Of course, then there is the black knight, someone who is suffering from a black pill overdose. A black knight goes out of their way to troll and harm women. And finally, ascension is the term for when the incel finally ascends their social status and stops being an incel. Incels view improvement mostly as a cope. They believe that the red pill stuff is also a cope, that you can get women by improving your personality or getting more money. They say that if they're an incel, they're going to be an incel forever. Despite this, some try. The gym cell, for example, is an incel who tries to go to the gym in order to get jacked in order to get women. Of course, incels often find that this leads to just more men miring following them. Looks maxing is when you spend all of your resources on trying to get the best looks possible, sometimes through plastic surgery. Many incels have done this to varying degrees of success. Indeed, as time goes on and we have more and more body modifications, the very concept of a biological incel will soon disappear. Soft maxing is when you do things like try to make more money and shave and hygiene. Hard maxing is when you do invasive surgery like plastic surgery or that thing where they shatter your legs to make you grow back taller. Incels have a term called white maxing, where minority group incels will try to make themselves look as white as possible to attract women. This is because of the internalized racism. However, you may also notice that women have a similar thing called blackfishing, where white women will try to look darker in order to seem more attractive. I'm not going to draw any links there besides that one. Just think about that. Then of course there is money maxing, status maxing, and even jester maxing, where you try to become funny in order to attract a mate. AMOG stands for alpha male of group, and to mog somebody is to flex on them in order to show your dominance over them. For example, a tall man might height mog a smaller man by pointing out his height.
Blah 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 blah.
Hey, what's up, shorty?
Dude, you just height-mogged me.
Height-mogged?
Height-mog? Mog stands for male of group. You just asserted your dominance over me so that you could acquire this female.
Dude, I was just making a lighthearted joke, okay? It doesn't mean anything. I'm not mogging you. I'm just playing around. You know, I wouldn't have told that joke if I knew you were insecure about being short, but you thinking that you're getting mogged just means that you're insecure about your height. And you'd be a lot more attractive, I think, if you just accepted that and were more comfortable and warm about your own shortcomings.
Huh, I never thought about it like that before. You totally self-acceptance mogged that guy. My small female brain has been tricked by this myopic power game. Would you like to make out?
Okay.
This is an example of why it's never good to tell a joke around an autistic person. I have some terms that I would like to add to the Incelclopedia, if you would have it. Incelerationism is an accelerationist incel philosophy that seeks to accrue a critical mass of incels to make the beta uprising happen even quicker. Thus, instead of fixing the incel problem, they seek to create more and more incels, such that eventually they hit a critical mass of incels and destroy the chads. Jawflation is another one of my additions. Because of tactics like mewing and plastic surgery, people with otherwise perfectly strong jawbones cannot compete with the incels, who can now create good jawbones of their own. Now, chads must mew just to keep up with the jawflation. Chadflation is another term, when anyone can become a chad easier by picking up on these terms and working out and figuring out basic hygiene. The amount of chads increases, thus you must become an even more chadlier chad just to compete in the global marketplace of men. Then of course there is the chadgularity, the point in which chadflation becomes so bad that even 10 out of 10 gigachads cannot get any poon. There are of course many other terms which we could not cover in today's video. However, I feel that the terms we covered today were some of the most important. There is, of course, wide swaths of virgin versus chad lore still to cover, but maybe we will do that in another video. If there are any terms I missed, please leave them in the comments below.